She isn't happy, and it's our fault, orphans she adopted, and because of us, she never had a husband. That's the sentence I grew up hearing in a dozen different flavors. Sometimes it was a joke tossed into the sink with the dishes. Who has time for dates when there are 3 lunchboxes to pack? Sometimes it was a sigh in the car, men don't line up for women with history. Sometimes it was a sharper thing, a shard she didn't mean to let slip, I chose you, and that meant choosing against other things. I'm 28 now, old enough to know how stories harden when you tell them too many times. They set like plaster around whatever you're trying to protect. But I still believed ours. It made sense. She adopted 3 kids from the foster system, me at 9, my brother Oleg at 7, and my sister Katya at 4. We were loud, night terrors loud. We broke things. We had court dates and caseworkers and mandated counseling. She sacrificed. Men didn't stick around for chaos like that. Conclusion: we were the reason she was alone. Last Sunday, I was packing up her apartment. She'd finally let go of the 2-bedroom walk-up with the sagging balcony, moving to something with an elevator and fewer stairs. The move was my idea. Katya gets migraines, Oleg works double shifts, and Mom, sorry, Val, still pretends she's 30 and spry, despite the brace on her knee. We were sorting the closet when I found the shoebox. It was taped on all sides and wedged behind winter coats in a black hole of dust. On the lid, in her uneven, decisive handwriting, old utility bills. Trash. I peeled the tape. Inside were letters. The first one was postmarked 1999, the year she brought me home. Val. I made pasta. I waited. When you're done with the interviews? Paperwork? You'll call. I miss your shoulders in the doorway. A. We didn't know an A. I flipped through more envelopes. Same return address, same quick, slanted A's that looked like they were in a hurry to fall forward. Some had snapshots tucked in, a smile crooked like a paper cut, a pair of hands holding a cheap ceramic mug, a living room with a low table and 2 slices of pizza on paper plates, 1 half-eaten. There were wedding photos too. Small, wallet size. Val in a dress that looked like she had decided at noon she wanted to get married and pulled the lace curtain off a window. He was beautiful in the way quiet people sometimes are. I turned the picture over. On the back, August 22nd. We did it. I sat on the bedroom floor with bills sticking to my legs and read the letters while the box of my mother's life breathed quietly like an animal pretending to sleep. Val had a husband. I put the letters back in the box and carried it to the kitchen island like it weighed nothing. It weighed the hospital I met her in, the courtrooms, the science fair, the night she slept in a chair next to my bed while I coughed up pneumonia. It weighed the sentence I'd let fossilize in my chest: she isn't happy, and it's our fault. Mom? I called. She was in the living room, folding blankets into perfect rectangles. She cuts the corners with nothing but air, no scissors, just the force of her will. What's this? She didn't look up, so I put the photo in her line of sight. The blanket slid out of her hands. Where did you get that? In the closet. Box labeled trash. It is trash. Who is he? She inhaled. The kind of inhale people take when they're about to dive or lie. My husband, she said, and blinked like the word stung. I was married. A long time ago. You told us. I told you what was true, she said without a beat. I didn't have a husband. I looked at the tiny picture, back at her, and felt anger stir like someone thudding on a door from the inside. Mom, that's not the same thing. What does it change? She asked. We are moving. The coffee maker is still broken. Your brother still forgets his coat. She has 3 modes when confronted: deflect, diminish, distract. I put the photo down so carefully it could have cracked. It changes the story. You said men never stuck around because of us. But he was there before us. You got married. You? What happened? She didn't answer. She picked up the blanket and smoothed it flat, as if the creases were what hurt her. Do you want pizza? She asked. There's a place around the corner. Mushroom? I wanted the truth like a blunt object. I want to know if we took something from you. She looked up. For a second, her face did a thing I had never seen, like a shadow passing over a road. You never took anything, she said. Then her jaw set. But I gave something. Sit down. We sat at the island like it was a confessional. She made tea and didn't drink it. She told me the story in a series of careful cuts. She met him in late winter at a free legal clinic where she volunteered to feel less guilty about how well her own life had gone. He came in with a landlord problem and a soft voice. He was a teacher. He laughed carefully, like laughter could make something worse. His name was Andre, but everyone called him Ari. They went for coffee that turned into soup that turned into a matinee in a theater where the heat clanked like old bones. They got married after 6 months, on a day so humid the priest wiped his forehead with the sleeve of his robe. They bought a cheap couch and cheaper champagne. They left love notes for each other on sticky pads, the kind with a cartoon cat in the corner. And then, I asked, though I had a feeling I knew the shape of the then. And then I couldn't have children, she said. The sentence fell like a teacup and somehow didn't break. It wasn't negotiable. It wasn't a maybe. I told myself I could be enough anyway. He told me he didn't care. People say things. They mean them until they don't. You adopted us, I said. I applied, she corrected softly. Ari didn't sign the first time. He wanted to wait. He said we should try other paths. Nothing ugly. He never raised his voice. He made lists. He liked data. He liked options. I liked certainty. You filed anyway? I filed anyway. Her hand moved to her knee brace like it had a mind of its own. It became an argument, which became a room we didn't go into. He slept on the couch the week my first application interview happened. It wasn't a punishment. He said he was giving me space to choose the life that would make me happy. I said I already had. We were both telling the truth we could live with. And then I showed up, I said. My voice came out small, 9 again, holding a black trash bag with all my clothes in it, because that's what you get when you leave one life for another, the bag they give you at checkout. You showed up, she echoed. You were fierce. You didn't smile at me for 3 weeks. Then you did. I thought the roof would lift off the house. Ari? I asked. He moved out the week I signed your papers, she said, matter of fact and bleeding. He said he loved me enough not to make me choose every day between him and what I'd already chosen. He wrote letters those first months. I answered some, then fewer, then none. He said he'd be here if I changed my mind. I changed my life instead. Silence gathered between us like fog. I could hear Oleg in the hallway, his keys, the stomp of his boots, but for a moment the apartment was a snow globe and we were the only 2 figures inside. I told you I didn't have a husband, she said into the quiet. It felt truer than saying I had someone who left. You told us men don't stay because we're complicated. They don't stay, she said, and for the first time there was heat under her words. They stay until they don't. Ari would have made a kind father. He would have read you poems and bought the good glue for science projects. But he wanted a life I couldn't live without tearing something essential out of myself. So I let him go. You also let us believe we were the reason. I let myself believe it too, she said. It made the trade easier. If the cost was clear, then I had paid it, and we all lived with the receipt on the fridge. That's neat math. Real life is not neat. I thought of the ways her story had arranged my choices without my consent. The boyfriends I'd tiptoed around. The jobs I'd turned down because I thought putting my needs first was the first step to losing your people. I thought of Katia apologizing for everything, how she says sorry when she sneezes. I thought of Oleg's arm, the one with the line of cigarette burns he swears happened when he was careless near a bonfire, the kind of carelessness that looks like an old story trying to write itself again. Do you want to find him? I asked. She looked at the letters like they were on the other side of glass. No. Then why keep these? I didn't, not on purpose, she said. I put them with the bills. They became paper. I only keep what I think might be needed later. That's who I am. A woman who keeps the user manual for the toaster. She reached out and turned one of the wedding photos face down. Maybe I was wrong. I took the letters home that night. It felt like theft. It felt like rescue. I read them at my kitchen table at 2 in the morning while my downstairs neighbor's baby cried and then didn't. Ari was funny in a way my mother never reported, dry, small jokes between the lines. He worried about the plant on their windowsill. He wanted to try making cinnamon rolls, but feared the dough. He wrote about a stray cat that had adopted their stoop, a blister on his left heel, a kid in his class who refused to write his own name and insisted on being addressed as Captain. He never once wrote, "Choose me." He wrote, "I am here if you want me to be where you are." I found a single letter from my mother to him. It was short. I'm filling out the form where I list household members. If I write your name, they will want to talk to you. They will look at you and ask what you want. I cannot watch you be kind about how much you don't want this. I love you enough to not require you to perform consent for my dream. Please understand. V. I put the letters back in the box and stared at my reflection in the microwave door until it started to look like someone else. My mother had not been abandoned by the mythic, generic man. She had negotiated, in private, with a specific person who signed his name with an A that leaned forward like it was falling into the future. She had chosen me. He had chosen not to make her pay for it daily in little coins of resentment. That wasn't the story she told us. The story she told us had teeth, because teeth was how she survived. I could have left it there, unexpected discovery, box returned to the closet, a new line on the spreadsheet of my life. But something about the way my mother turned the photo face down felt unfinished. And I'd been the child who opened doors marked "Do Not Enter" ever since I was tall enough to reach the knob. I Googled him. There are too many Andres in this city, and too many A's that lean. But 20 minutes later, I was scrolling through a high school's website, a staff page with headshots in the flattened light of hallways. There he was. 20 years older, sure, but eyes the same, tired the way tenderness makes you tired. English department chair. He supervised the literary magazine. He had written an essay 3 years ago about the joy of old chalkboards. The kind of person who cares about dust. I could have closed the tab. Instead, I clicked email. Subject, Val. Body, you don't know me. I'm her daughter. I didn't send it. I printed it and tucked it into the shoebox with the letters like I was adding a chapter to a book that had waited too long for one. Then I called my siblings. We met at Kadia's kitchen table, which is really just a slab of wood on 2 sawhorses covered in paint drips. She paints to pay the rent. She paints to breathe. Oleg arrived late with a bag of groceries. He pretended he had just had, even though when Oleg brings groceries it means he's worried and wants to cover it with carrots. I told them. I put the photo on the table. Oleg swore in the soft, sweet way he does when he wants to be respectful and fails. Kadia pressed her fingers to her mouth. She lied, Kadia said, not accusing, not surprised, just building a sentence that could hold everything. She told a version, I said. That made her a martyr, Oleg said, kicking his chair back on 2 legs like he was daring gravity to take him. Makes every favor we ask feel like stealing bread from a nun. Kadia turned the photo over in her hands. Do we tell her we know? What do we even want? I want to know who failed who, I said, and heard how childish that sounded, like failure could be pinned on a corkboard with colored string. I want to stop carrying the receipt. What receipt? Oleg asked. That we cost her a life she was supposed to have, I said. I felt the sentence leave my body like something pulled out of a locker where it had rusted. I want to know if that's even real. If it ever was. We didn't decide anything at that table. Families rarely decide cleanly. We agreed to help her move on Saturday. We agreed not to mention Ari unless she did. We agreed Oleg would stop buying groceries as love notes and start texting "I love you" like a person who can use the 21st century. Saturday came like it always does, late, and then all at once. We hauled boxes. We yelled about where the Allen wrench went. We found crayons and couch cushions and a tooth in an envelope marked "Teeth, do not throw away." We made a pile for the thrift store that could have clothed a small nation. The shoebox came with us, tucked into my backpack like contraband. In the new kitchen, with its smooth white cabinets that shut like secrets, my mother kept reaching to where drawers used to be. She'd move left and the drawer would be right, and she'd laugh at herself and then stop. The body remembers the old apartment the way the mind remembers a story, automatically. She was putting spice jars in numerical order. She puts everything in an order that makes sense only to her, when she said, without turning, "Did you take the letters?" Kadia shot me a look. Oleg froze with a lamp in his hands. "Yes," I said. "I read them." My mother closed the cabinet and leaned her forehead against it. "Then you know." I know you were married. I know he left when I arrived. I know you told us a story where we were why. I told myself a story where I was why, she said, still talking to the cabinet. That my insistence on adopting made me unlovable to the man I had married. It made me noble, at least to myself. I was Joan of Arc without the fire. I could carry the loneliness if it came with a purpose. You could have told us, Claudia said. Her voice was careful. It would have made things softer. Or Messier, my mother said, and finally turned. Children don't need their mother's romance. They need their mother's certainty. We needed the truth, Alex said, and surprised me. He hates words like need unless they're attached to truck parts. We grew up learning to apologize for existing. My mother flinched. I'm sorry, she said. And to her credit, she didn't try to turn it into a lesson about intention. I am sorry. I thought if I made the cost clear, none of you would ever doubt that you were worth it. We were all silent for a heartbeat that stretched and stretched. Do you want to see him? I asked, because someone had to place the last tile in this mosaic. I found him. He's a teacher. Her mouth made a line. No, she said, with a softness that meant yes once upon a time. What we had was a door. I chose to close it. He chose not to knock forever. That's not a tragedy. That's the ordinary shape of two lives. What if I want to see him? I asked and realized I did, the way you want to see a place where something happened to understand where the ground dips. My mother's eyes moved over my face like she was counting freckles she forgot I owned. Then you will, she said. You are not mine like a possession. You are mine like a story I started and you get to finish. I emailed him that night. Because I am my mother's daughter, I wrote like a person who wants to make sure to file all necessary forms, who I am, when I came, what I know, what I don't. I said I didn't expect a reply. I said I hoped he was well, which is what you say to strangers to cover the fact you want something. He answered in an hour. Dear, may I call you Masha? Your mother wrote your name once on a grocery list she left accidentally on my desk, and I have carried it like a charm. I am glad you exist. That is my first answer. The second, your mother was a brave and stubborn person, and I was a kind and cowardly one. Kindness can be a form of cowardice when you use it to avoid being the one who says the word that ends something. I didn't want to be the man who kept her from what she wanted. I also didn't want the life she wanted. So I made sure she had one of those truths. I left the other for time to deliver. If you ever want coffee, I am at the corner of Euclid and 3rd every Thursday after school grading papers badly. A. I read it 3 times. I thought of all the nights my mother folded blankets into rectangles. I thought of the way she turned the photo face down. I thought of how many ways a life can be unbroken and still shaped by the places it bent. I met him the next Thursday. He was smaller than in the photos because everybody is smaller when you carry them around for a week in your head. He'd gone gray at the temples in a way that made me feel protective of him and angry at time. He ordered tea. I ordered coffee and didn't drink it. You have her mouth, he said, then blushed like he'd said something indecent. I mean, your smile. When you let it happen. People don't usually tell me that, I said. I'm more her, everything else. We talked like 2 people who had both been told one story and now held the other. He told me about the summer they moved into the apartment with the sagging balcony and how my mother replaced the lock herself because the landlord said he'd get to it. He told me how she took the bus an hour to a training on trauma-informed parenting before she even had a child to parent. He told me how he loved her in the only way he knew how, making lists of supplies for a child who didn't yet exist, comparing beds, reading about night terrors until he could recite the symptoms like scripture. And how at the end he understood that loving someone's dream is not the same as being able to live inside it. Were we the reason she was alone? I asked before I could stop. I wanted to put the receipt on the counter and ask the clerk to check the math. He smiled a small, sad smile. No, he said. But you were the way. Sometimes that matters more. She wasn't alone. She was with you. I didn't cry then. I cried later, in my car, where I do most of my not-for-public consumption feelings. Then I drove to my mother's and found her in the new kitchen, still reaching for drawers that weren't where they used to be. I put the shoebox on the counter. He's kind, I said. And a little cowardly, like he said. She snorted. He has always been very honest when it doesn't cost him much. Then she touched the lid of the box, fingered it lightly. Are you okay? I'm angry, I said. And relieved. And something else that doesn't have a word. Grief, she supplied. For aversion. For a receipt, I said. We can throw it out now, right? My mother considered me, then the box, then the trash can. No, she said. We are not throwing anything away. We are admitting it exists. We are putting it with the spices where I can reach it when I need to remember the taste. It was such a her answer that I laughed. She smiled, and for a second I saw the woman in the photo who decided at noon to get married because humidity couldn't stop her. She reached for me and I let myself be reached. That night, after Katya and Oleg left, after the new apartment had quieted into the sound of the refrigerator clicking on and off like a metronome for the domestic heart, my mother and I sat on the floor with our legs stretched out. She told me about the time she held me while I kicked against a dream of a basement I could not get out of. I told her about how I say sorry for coughing and have been trying to stop. She told me she was afraid that if she had told the truth, I would have wondered every time she raised her voice whether I was an argument that had one too much. I told her I already wondered the inverse, whether I was a cost she was still paying off. We rewrote. Not by erasing, but by adding a chapter that had been left in a shoebox. A week later, Katya painted a small canvas and hung it in the new kitchen next to my mother's elaborate spice order. It was a simple picture, a door half open. On the frame, in Katya's careful hand, this, we are not why. We are what? The sentence has been knocking around in my head ever since, making room. I don't know if it's the truth, capital T, but it's a truer story than the one that calcified when I was 9. And when I think of my mother now, even when she is difficult, even when she is insisting I wear a jacket in August or alphabetize my life, I don't see a saint with a ledger or a martyr with a torch. I see a woman who wanted something so badly she was willing to be the villain in her own myth if it made it easier to hold on to what she had chosen. If you need a villain in the story, make it the way we lie to ourselves kindly. Kindness is a soft knife. It leaves small, neat wounds that take a very long time to notice. I still have the shoebox. Not to throw away. To remember that our lives were not ruined by each other, but shaped by choices that were, at the time, the only choices we could make. When I open it, sometimes, late, with the dishwasher hushing the room, I read his letter where he writes that he'll be where she wants him to be. I think of her writing that she cannot watch him be kind about a thing he does not want. I think of how they loved each other enough to stop asking the other to become an actor in the wrong play. And, because Reddit demands a moral and I refuse to leave things neat, I'll leave this as the messiest honesty I have. She isn't happy in the way a commercial promises happiness, no. Some days her knee aches and the empty bed is a field she crosses very slowly. But if you saw her face when Katya's migraine finally releases its grip, or when Oleg laughs at his own terrible joke, or when I get brave enough to stop apologizing, if you saw the way her mouth remembers how to be a doorway for joy, you would understand that not having a husband was never the villain. It was just an absence we learned to arrange furniture around. We are no one's receipt. We are the home she chose. And by choosing us, she didn't lose a life. She started one that asked more of her than she thought she had. She had enough. It turns out we did, too.